Welcome back to the program. So I want to cover a couple of things, okay? First and foremost, let's talk about the no queens, right? Which the no kings turned into old queens. Basically, all you really had were old hippies and Karens, and thankfully neither one of them are going to reproduce anytime soon, okay? So it was a total dud. All had the same signs. They were all professionally printed. Obviously, it was funded by the Soroses and the Neville Singhams and the rest of these scumbags. And again, no impact at all. Terrible, terrible numbers. They said 9 million people and 3,000 rallies. Yeah, right. Not even anywhere close. I don't even think there was 900,000 throughout the entire country. I would guess maybe 100,000, 80,000, 90,000 total, somewhere around there. In maybe, I don't know, 20, 25. From what I can see so far, it was an absolute disaster. But anyway, so that was the first thing I wanted to cover. Now, let's do a little nostalgia. For folks that have been watching my show for 14 plus years or however long I've been doing this, you may know that my early influences were Michael Savage and, of course, Rush Limbaugh, right? And really more Michael Savage. I always loved Michael Savage because he was savage, because he didn't care what he said and how he said it. He didn't care who he offended. And I gravitated towards that. Well, the old bird is still going strong, believe it or not, all these years later. And I found a little 2 minutes or so that just to take a trip down memory lane, listen to what this guy says. He's still, in my opinion, one of the greatest at what he does. And I've admired him then, and I admire him now. Listen to this. This is great.
And welcome to it used to be a savage nation, or once savage nation. The old queens are all over the highways, blocking overpasses, blocking cars. The old queens protests are at it again. There they are. Bernie Sanders joined by Jane Fonda and Joan Baez, straight from the crypt. They dug them up out of the old age homes, took them off their wheelchairs and rockers. Old communists never died, they just lose their guitars. But there she is, Joan Baez, all over again. How many times? They think it's Vietnam. They think they're going to get lucky, that some young protester is going to take them in the back of a van and give them a good banging. But what they are mass murderers disguised as good liberals. They're the scum of the earth. They're not your friends. They're your enemies. Make no mistake about it. Bernie Sanders is the most evil piece of shit that ever... I don't want to start cursing. It diminishes my value. Bernie Sanders is the worst piece of shit that has ever sat in this chair in the United States Congress. That old bastard from New York, who never held a job in his frigging life. That old bastard poisoned the minds of millions with his communist bullshit, the old seltzer man. Hanoi Jane was a traitor. She appeared on the anti-aircraft gun of a North Vietnamese during the Vietnam War as our planes were being shot down, and she's doing it again. 90 years old, what did she think she's going to get laid? That sour old thing, that dried up prune, Jane Fonda, and Joan Baez, where'd they get her from? Which old age home did they drag her out of? But now let's get serious just for a minute before I go. I'm ready to go already. I don't want to get mad. I can't afford it. Who is funding this? Number one is George Soros. George Soros is a partner in crime. George Soros and his son.
So then he goes on, he talks about Soros and some others and things like that, but he still has the vigor, he still has the piss and vinegar, and he still has the savageness. And so I wanted to kind of start with that a little bit. Now, the other thing is, I'm going to show you a video in the next segment that is absolutely breathtaking. It is Pava Raslavi, I think that's his name, or Reza Pahlavi. I think I put them backwards. Anyway, he is the grandson of the Shah. And he spoke at CPAC, and unbelievable. And it's just amazing to me that the people that are cheering for what's happening with Iran are conservative Americans, right? And of course, the Iranian people that have been subjected to this horrific regime. But yet, on the other side, you have liberals and Democrats and politicians that are against the liberation of these wonderful people. So you want to make Iran great again on one side, which of course is what we want to do. But yet, because President Trump is doing it, if it was anyone else, it could have been Howdy Doody, it could have been Bill Clinton, it could have been anyone else, and they would have been fine with it. They would have been supporting it. But because it's Trump, that's their issue. That's their problem. Now, I want to get into a couple different things. I want to talk about, of course, what's happening next, right? But I don't know if you had a chance to hear any of that speech that President Trump did the other day. I think it was yesterday, where he was really, really funny. He said the Straits of Trump, and he said, oh, that was a mistake. I didn't really mean to do that. And he goes, yes, of course I meant it, right? Well, in that speech, if you listen to it, he says something that probably no one is talking about, and that's why I'm going to talk about it. What's happening with Iran is going to lead to overall permanent, let me repeat that, permanent peace in the Middle East. Because it's not just about taking out this regime. It's about taking out this regime and getting every single Arab country in the region to sign the Abraham Accords, which will, of course, normalize relationships with the country of Israel. That is how you're going to get peace in the Middle East, and it will be permanent. And let me tell you this, every single country, once the Iranian regime is gone, will sign on to the Accords. Okay? That's what's going to happen. And it's very simple for the reason why. Because President Trump is saving their asses too. And they know it, and they respect him. And of course, they fear him. But it's not even about that. It's about once this regime is gone, and believe me, all the Arab countries in the area want this regime gone. They understand that they are the impediment to peace. They're all going to sign. They're going to be tripping over each other to get in line first to sign the Abraham Accords. Mark my words. Now, let's talk about this. So, we now have 2,000 Marines have arrived in the Arabian Sea, and they're on the USS Tripoli, which again, as I've explained to you, is an assault amphibious fleet that can demolish anything that the Iranians try to do in the Straits of Hormuz. Not only that, now we're finding out that they brought in this new generation warfare, never used before, where they're kind of like jet skis, I guess, in some respect, that are radio controlled. And they are kamikaze jet skis or little tiny attack boats. And what they're doing is they're taking out all of the attack boats and not submarines, but the mine-laying boats that they're trying to put in the Straits of Hormuz. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And they're less expensive than drones and things like that, and they can be controlled even easier. So they have deployed those on the waters there. And now we're learning that there could be another 10,000 more troops coming. So let me make you this prediction. I have a feeling that sometime between April 9th and maybe April 16th, I believe that is enough time for them to get situated in the area, get rid of the mines, get rid of the anti-aircraft abilities, to strike any of the ships and aircraft carriers and those types of things. Clear all that out in the next couple of weeks while they're training for this mission. And I believe at some point in the next 2 weeks or so, they're going to be ready and they're going to take Karg Island. They're going to take Karg Island. And again, it's just a hunch. I don't have, documented proof of it, but based on what I have seen, based on the patterns of this administration and how they operate, where months ago I was screaming, these people are being killed, where are you, President Trump, right? Well, I'm not doing that anymore because they're here. But number one, I'm not screaming, take Karg Island tomorrow, because now I understand what they're doing. They are methodical, they are meticulous, they are precise, and they want to make sure that there's not going to be any casualties on our side, and that they want to go in with the best plan possible. And they are going to do that. I believe they're going to do that. Now, the other thing is, when they do this, and when there are quote-unquote boots on the ground, I think it's important that they understand who, according to some of the things that I have read, is really in control of Iran right now. We know the Ayatollah's gone. We know the cardboard is not in control. We know Laranjani's gone. We know all the rest of the soldiers and mullahs and clerics and the high priestess leaders of the Iranian regime and all that, right? And we know that he's talking perhaps maybe to this one guy that's the finance minister, and then you have Irgc, there's another guy, right? Well, there's somebody else that is calling the shots in Iran, and you've never heard his name before until now. And let me tell you, this is something that they need to concentrate and pinpoint, find this guy, and eliminate him immediately. Here it is. The guy's name, well, here, before I even get to that, a power vacuum emerges in Iran's regime. And who's really calling these shots? As the conflict enters its fourth week, these questions are shaping Western policy and military strategy. The answer reveals why prematurely stopping the war will almost certainly produce a far more extremist regime. Exactly what we have all been saying. We have to put boots on the ground. We have to get every single one of them, wipe them all out, so that this country has a chance to heal and be free. The past month has seen the U.S. and Israel eliminate the most senior ranking officials in the Islamic Republic, including the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Mojtaba, Ali Khamenei's son, is now formally succeeding his father as Supreme Leader, although he's not too supreme anymore. Was also targeted but reportedly narrowly survived and is mortally wounded. That said, his complete absence from the public eye since the assuming of the mantle has led many to conclude that the new Supreme Leader is not only severely wounded, but not in the decision-making realm. Despite incurring significant losses, there is still a high degree of coordination between the government bureaucracy and the military and intelligence apparatus. The three key pillars upon holding the Islamic Republic together against this backdrop and reports that Washington has been negotiating with the, quote, real power brokers in the region. Western policy circles have concluded that a new strongman has emerged in Tehran. All attention has turned to the obvious contender, and his name is, according to what everyone is thinking in the media, is this Baghar Ghalibaf, Speaker of the Iranian Parliament and veteran of Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the regime's ideological army. But that is not the case. That is the public persona, yes, but it's not who's really calling the shots. The obvious answer is rarely the correct one in Iran. While the egotistical Ghalibaf has played to the, quote, limelight, a far more powerful figure is likely to be silently pulling the Iranian strings. His name? Ahmad Vahidi. Remember that name, Ahmad Vahidi, the new Irgc commander-in-chief, who is a Khamenei absolutist. Unlike Ghalibaf, Vahidi has remained in the shadows since the beginning of the war. This is not without reason or analysis, suggesting that he is likely to be operating as the key member in the regime's chain of command, and his survival is essential to its continuity. Long before the war, Ali Khamenei had entrusted Vahidi to draw up battle plans to further militarize the entire regime. If he outlasts this conflict, which he won't, because we'll find him and kill him, and the regime does survive, which it won't, he will finally be able to implement this entire vision, a design that will produce a far more radical and extremist Islamic republic. Vahidi has unmatched experience and influence across the regime's military, through the intelligence bureaucracy and the government. His career began in the 1980s in the IRGC's Intelligence Bureau, made up of the regime's most ideological loyal operatives. As the IRGC's deputy for intelligence, he was handpicked to join a secretive cohort to accompany Khamenei to visits to North Korea, a trip designed to acquire missile and nuclear technology. During the Iran-Iraq War of 1980 to 1988, Vahidi was also one of the original members of the Ramadan Headquarters, a unit within the IRGC that was created to form Islamist terrorist groups globally and overseen by Khamenei. So this is the guy that started to import terrorism and create proxies throughout the entire region. This Vahidi guy is the one that started this. Upon assuming the supreme leadership in 1989, Khamenei created the notorious Quds Force, the IRGC's extraterritorial terror branch, and appointed Vahidi as its first commander. It was a testament to his loyalty. Vahidi demonstrated in that role that his vision to export terrorism was far more global than his notorious successor, Qasem Soleimani. Under Vahidi's command, the IRGC orchestrated the bombing of a Jewish cultural center in Argentina in 1994. They also did the Khobar Towers attack in Saudi Arabia in 1996, and secretly dispatched operatives in Europe to train Islamist mujahideen, including members of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and others during the Bosnian War. This resume would earn him a spot on Interpol's most wanted list starting way back in 2007. The doors to the government's opened for Vahidi when the IRGC-affiliated Mahmoud Ahmadinejad assumed the presidency in 2005. As Deputy Defense Minister and then Defense Chief, Vahidi was instrumental in overseeing the expansion of Iran's ballistic missile capabilities and nuclear program. It is likely he did this with the assistance of his North Korean counterparts. He also expanded the Islamic Republic's nefarious footprint in Latin America as well, especially in Venezuela. Vahidi's deep ties to the Quds Force and Hezbollah would have made him the perfect candidate to spearhead the Islamic Republic's involvement in narcotics and drug trafficking, a lucrative business the IRGC justified through an ideological lens of causing long-term damage to infidel Western societies. In government, Vahidi was also one of the masterminds behind the militarization of the state bureaucracy. He exploited his position to replace ordinary civil servants with IRGC affiliates. He furthered this through a purification process when he was appointed Interior Minister under the presidency of hardliner Ibrahim Raisi. In this role, Vahidi replaced almost all political appointees and governors with IRGC commanders. So if the Islamic regime wasn't radical enough, this guy made it even more radical and more extreme. These efforts paid dividends for Vahidi, enhancing government coordination with the IRGC's suppressive apparatus and enabling him to direct the crackdown on Iran's 2022 women life freedom unrest. But the most consequential role Vahidi has held is almost entirely unknown to the outside world until now. In 2018, Vahidi was appointed as head of Iran's Supreme National Defense University and was entrusted by the late Supreme Leader to devise a plan to fully militarize the Islamic theocracy. He did this by establishing the Shahid Bashenti School of Governance, the first and only institution of its kind in Iran that was open exclusively to military personnel only. The goal was to ensure that the next cadre of the Islamic Republic's political elite and decision makers would be from the military, and therefore trained under the oversight of the most senior IRGC commanders, not just the clergy. Vahidi may now finally be in a position to implement this plan. This does not mean that the IRGC is taking power from the clerics. Rather, it would be the clergy's armed extension, shaped by the same ideological training and loyalty in the same system. What Vahidi represents is not the end of theocracy, but its further extremist militarization. So this is the guy that we've got to find and we have to eliminate. So keep your ears and eyes open in media reports. And trust me, when I find out they eliminated this guy, I'll let everybody know. But his name is Ahmad Vahidi. Ahmad Vahidi. This is the guy that's running Iran right now. And where is he running it from? We don't know. More than likely from a cave or some underground bunker somewhere. But this is the guy that is calling the shots, not the, quote, person and people that President Trump is negotiating with. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.